to come back to without a phone to call. Can I somehow stop it all? The hook was faded, now I'm isolated, and what have I created? When you dream of someone new, the hook was faded, and your heart is bleeding, and if our lives are faded, is this what we've been slaving for? Your love keeps falling down. Your love keeps falling down. Your love keeps falling down. Your love keeps falling
Cool. So, did you go to, what was your kind of musical education? Were you all an autodidact, self-taught in all the instruments, or did you have a foundation in theory or composition or anything?
I took drum lessons for a while as a kid, but my real musical sort of school, if you will, was that I was a street musician in Harvard Square, Cambridge, which is where Tracy Chapman used to play and stuff like that. And basically, I would support myself by playing 12 to 16 hours a day in front of the Coop in Harvard Square, Cambridge. And I learned how to play guitar and sing by doing this. So it was boot camp, but it was hardcore because my approach to it was, I'm going to make this as hardcore and arena rock power as I possibly can, even if there's nobody walking by. So I invested myself in each song that I would play. And I got a lot better at playing and singing and writing. And I learned how to project my voice, and I learned everything that I know really about how to be a musician from this 3-year period of performing solo acoustic as a street busker. And I had some experiences that I'll never forget. There was a time when I was playing, and I forget what song I was playing, but all of a sudden I realized that I couldn't remember the next lyric or the next chord or what to do with my hands. But the song kept going, and my consciousness was detached from the performance of the song. And I saw myself from a different perspective. I was not aware of what was happening. And it was a magical experience that I still think about sometimes. And,
Wow.
It's just cool to have something happen outside of your awareness when normally you're like, okay, I know what I have to do and I'm doing it.
What did you, do you remember the song? Did you start winging lyrics, or what happened?
The song kept going. I sang the right songs. I played the right chords, and it was all good. It was probably one of my originals. I emphasized original songs as much as I could. I played a few covers. I played "I Would Die for You" by Prince. And one thing that was cool was that Eddie Vedder was in town. This was at the height of their popularity in '94, and so Pearl Jam was playing in Boston somewhere. And so I'm playing, and I see this little dude all curled up in an army jacket, and I'm thinking, there's only one person who doesn't want to be seen as much as that guy, and that has to be Eddie Vedder. So I realized this is Eddie Vedder, like watching me play. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn it up
Wow.
and just rock. So I was playing "I Would Die for You," and it was like really good, for me. And so sure enough, he comes up and he looks at me and he sees the Bison tape in the guitar case. He says, "Is this a tape?" I say, "Yeah, yeah, please take one." So he tucks a little money in the guitar case, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm a big fan, right?" So sure enough, he looks all alarmed and takes off.
Jeez.
He's recognized, right?
Yeah, grunge kid. He doesn't want to.
Yeah,
Supposed to lay
exactly.
low.
So, then I'm kind of having fun with it a little bit, just because I couldn't help myself. So I'm standing there. Eddie Vedder is in Harvard Square.
Oh,
Find him.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah. What can I say? I was young and impetuous.
Yeah. Funny.
And sure enough, at the end of the day, it was a $50 bill. So that was his tip. So I apologize, Eddie, if I made your day more difficult.
And he's the first one to listen to this podcast, so he will
Oh, yeah.
appreciate the apology. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Cool. So you moved out there. It looks like from your bio you have a few albums the last few years.
Mhm.
And the last one, Fortune Cookie. Here's a phrase. Now I identify with your kind of, your musical style even, but even more than that, the kind of DIY piece of it. So you're doing everything.
Right.
I'm a musician. I don't do everything, drums particularly, but you're mixing, you're recording, you're I guess producing in a way yourself, or arranging all the music.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons, and what's the upside downside? I'm thinking of a phrase that I've heard that says that anyone who defends themselves in court has a fool for a client. So you know what I mean. What do you think? Is this working out? The album sounds very good. The quality.
Thank you.
And so what do you think?
Yeah, there are pros and cons to it. The pro is I can work very fast because I don't have to convince anybody or put forward a point of view and get somebody else to buy in. I can just hear it in my mind and then go and execute it. And now, having done 3 albums in this vein, I'm fast at it, and so I can do a whole song in 1 day or 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then spend a lot of time mixing it and perfecting it.
Right.
So I'm also very comfortable because I know nobody's gonna tell me this sucks, right? It's either as good as I think it is, right?
Which could be a liability.
Yeah. There are benefits of working in a band. You get creative synergy. You get multiple ideas from people, and it creates a positive thing when you have multiple points of view all helping on a creative process. But for me, I guess these are really glorified folk songs in a way. They're all start with lyrics and an acoustic guitar, and then the way that they become prog or rock is just through the arrangement and sort of the choices that are involved in that. So it's fun to be able to experiment totally with different sounds and different approaches and different ways of doing things without having to clear it with anybody or make sure it expresses somebody else's point of view also.
Right.
So from that sort of megalomaniacal point of view, it works for me.
Well, to me, it's like myself. I'm a kind of an overeducated, trained composer who kind of drifted back to his rock roots. So it's not maniacal at all to say, if you're a prime creator, and you just happen to be, but a lot of composers play their own music. So if your instrument, so to speak, is kind of the rock trio kind of format, and it's not a big deal to learn how to mix and do the engineering to a certain extent. I'm surprised there aren't more of us out there, because a really single-minded composer who goes trains himself like you did or gets educated like I did, it's perfectly natural to be in control of every element, rather than having a producer telling you, how the texture needs to go, and then you have to have a ringer for every instrument or vocal part, whatever.
Yeah. I think the one element where having somebody else involved would really be beneficial is in producing the vocals, because that's one element where I would say, limited ability to push myself, and I would benefit, I know for sure, from somebody else saying, you could sing that line again better,
Yeah.
or things like that, because you know when I make the call, it's often like, okay, well, that's how it sounds when I sing that line,
Yeah.
and it's either great or maybe not as great, but yeah, hopefully it all works out anyway.
Right,
But
right.
I know for sure I've worked with producers when Bison was going. We did a few sessions. One with a really great producer named Mike Gatsios, who is down in LA now, and it's really great to have somebody else pulling the switches and telling you go and saying do it again, and to not have to worry about that and just say, okay, my job now is strictly to be a performer, at least of a vocal piece. It seems to make the most difference.
Right. It's funny you mentioned your voice. I mean, it's a very, I can't, the one name that comes out, and I actually had to Google for the name, but it's the lead singer from this band, the Smithereens. Do you remember them?
I do remember the Smithereens.
So it's guy Pat DiNizio. Yeah, I
Pat
remember
DiNizio.
from the 80s, he always had a soul patch, and he had a kind of a wobbly but kind of husky baritone. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what it reminded me straight away. And I'm showing everyone I was horrified to see his latest picture. He's like 300 pounds. He doesn't look anything like
Oh,
this.
I don't look like that, audience. So
Yeah,
don't get me confused with Pat DiNizio.
I won't.
Yeah, I used to listen to the Smithereens. I mean, I like everything. Buffalo Tom was a band that I used to love. They were from Boston back in the day. Apart from Rush, the biggest influences on my music were probably Bob Mould and Sugar, and some of his Husker Du stuff, and then Jawbox, which is a sort of post-punk band from Washington, D.C. And I don't think that my music sounds anything like Jawbox, because they're just they have such a unique thing happening. But when I would see them perform, they were so intense and so incredible at playing live that I just thought, okay, this is what's possible for a rock band. They would sweat